Welcome everyone. Welcome to Kitchen Table Creativity. I'm Donna Leffler, and today we're going to paint this beautiful whimsical lavender plant. And I'm really excited about this because I love lavender. I think it's so beautiful. It smells so good, and so it's kind of bringing back a lot of the memories of beautiful lavender scent while I'm painting this, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as I'm painting. But first, let me just run through the supply list. First of all, I'm going to use my Heart and Home palette that I've been using each week. And I'm just going to use the 5 colors that I like to stick to 5 in my tutorials. The first one is this reddish pinkish color, and I'm just going to use that for these 2 little hearts. Then I'm going to use this yellow for the bee, and I'm going to mix it with probably just a tiny bit of this terracotta reddish color. So we're going to use that for the pot, but also I'm going to just make this a little bit more golden and warm using that. Then I'm going to use the sap green for the stems and leaves, and then I'm going to use this purple color for the flowers. And all of the links will be in the description. Links and also just the different names of the different stuff that I use. And it's not that you have to get these supplies. You don't have to use these exact colors or paints at all. I just like to let people know what I'm using just in case they want to get those same products that I'm using. All right, I'm using my spiral bound sketchbook here. And as always, I like to trace my images. So I have a piece of graphite paper, black side down. And here's the printable image that I have in the description. Also, it's a PDF. You can print it out. You can cut it out like I'm doing here. And it just helps you to be able to center your composition really easily on the page so that you can frame it maybe. You can use it later as a card or however you want to use it. Or you can just leave it in your sketchbook or in your journal and just, see your progress that way by going page by page. All right, and then, so I'm going to use a stylus to trace that. I like to use a stylus. You can use a pen, a pencil, whatever works for you. I have a spray bottle, so I like to spray my paints, and I recommend that you do that with just plain clear water before you get started with them. That just prepares your paints. It gets them really ready to use. I have 2 really small brushes here. One I got from Craftamo, and it says it's like a 0, and I'm probably going to use this for the very fine detail leaves. And I'm probably going to use this for quite a bit of the painting. This one is a size 1, and I'll probably use that for the pot and the little shadow and a little bit larger areas. I have my ceramic mixing palette. Then I have this paint pen, which is in white, a Sharpie paint pen. I might or might not use this. I might use it for the heart, and I probably will use it actually for these little white dots on the pot. And then I have 2 permanent ink pens. They are both Micron, a 05 and a 005. And I like to outline my work with these and also sign my work. I have 3 jars of clean water. Love to use 3 jars of water to make sure my brushes are really clean and that I don't have to keep getting up and getting water. All right, so that's it for my supply list. And I also like to use paper towels and some scraps of watercolor paper so that I can test my paints and make sure that they're the right consistency before I put them on my actual work. And having a rag or paper towel is always good so that you can blot the water off your brush if you have too much water and too much paint, same thing. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and trace my plant here, and I will be right back. Okay, so I've drawn just the basic elements in this image. I could have gone and drawn every single one of these little buds or lavender flowers, but that would have been a lot of tracing to do. If you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it and paint in the purple flowers where I would like them to be. And you can see like I just put a leaf kind of like in the middle of each stem so that I could know when to start the leaves. So you can do it that way, or you can just totally hand draw this if you want to. You don't have to trace it. All right, so I'm going to start, I moved everything out of the way here, and I'm going to start with just my yellow, and I'm going to go with a very small brush, and I'm going to start with a very thick yellow because I want it to be kind of bright. And I'm going to get my brush wet. I'm going to use this little tiny brush. And I'm also going to use just a very tiny bit, like I said, of this brownish color. And the way to do this is to just take a very tiny bit of the darker color and add that to your lighter color. And you want to go with this very slowly because you don't want it to, the dark color to overwhelm your lighter color. And I'm just going to go with this. I just wanted to warm this yellow up just a tiny bit. You could use just a straight yellow too, which should be totally fine. And the bee, you know, this is just every other stripe. So this is very fine detail work. Now, if you want to make this bigger, you can, if you know how to do it, take the PDF that I have in the description and increase that in size. And you could make it a much larger painting, and that would probably be easier. But I like to work in small because I can finish it easier. Actually, that's the main reason. All right, so that's really all the yellow that I have in this. And I'm just gonna rinse my brush again. And next I'm going to take the pink and I'm gonna just paint those two little hearts. We have such a small amount of paint for these two elements. And I want this to be not red, I want this to be very light pink. And so this is where your scrap paper can come in. And that looks pretty good to me. Now I have quite a bit of water on this. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm just going to blot off a little bit of this water because I don't want it to be quite that wet. So the way that you do that, just touch your brush to your paper towel and then back onto your paint. And I might go back and make these a little darker, but always good to start very light. You can always add more paint. But it's harder to remove darker colors once you have them on your paper. All right. So that is a start. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this terracotta brownish. This is actually a red oxide, but it looks more brown. And I'm using my bigger brush now, a little bit bigger brush, and I'm going to dilute this way, way down again. And I think that's a good color. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to leave the heart white. And I'm not really going to worry a whole lot about those little tiny dots. I mean, I'll probably try to paint around them, but it's going to be kind of hard to do. So I will be going back for sure with my white paint pen. Now, if you don't want to deal with that, you don't have a white paint pen, totally fine. You could try using a white paint, or you could just not worry about it and leave the dots off, or you could paint them a darker color. I always say, do whatever speaks to your heart. And don't worry so much about the way I'm doing it, the way I'm painting it, having to copy exactly. My goal with my painting is, first of all, to just bring joy into my own life, joy just through the creative process, creating something, and then to be able to help other people do the same thing. So first of all, you want whatever you're working on to bring you joy, and just know there is no perfect right or wrong way to do this. So I was traveling last week, and you might be able to tell I have sort of like a stuffy nose still. I came down with some kind of virus on the plane, probably from someone, and I'm still a little bit congested. Feeling good. It's not a terrible thing. It's just I really wanted to paint today. So, with that said, if you see me or hear me, I should say, hopefully I'm not going to start coughing in the middle of this. I don't think I will. I'm really kind of over the coughing. But my nose is a little bit stuffy, in case you're wondering. All right, now when you're painting a pot like this, you know it's earth, it's clay, and so it's fine to have it be darker in some areas, lighter in some other areas. You don't really want it to be completely uniform everywhere. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit of this darker and paint it a little bit more like on the sides and bottom here. So I kind of want it to look like a little bit of like maybe the light is coming from the front and lighting up the central area where the heart is a little bit. So you can see I'm just leaving the heart white. And when all is said and done, it's going to look more white probably than it looks right now. Somehow when you're done with the paintings, that's what happens, which is great. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with it, the way that looks, and I'm going to go now rinse my brush really well. I'm going to switch back to the smaller brush, and I'm going to move into the purple. Beautiful, beautiful lavender color. And I'm probably not going to be talking as much in this video because my voice keeps kind of going in and out. So I have a little bit more silence. Maybe that's a good thing. So I think what I'm going to do is just start by doing each one of the tips of these. And it's good to have a little variation in colors of purple. One thing also, make sure that your brush is blotted of any water that might accumulate on here, because you can accidentally drop that onto your work. Right, and then like I said, I'm just going to kind of start. It's actually a little bit too dark. Now, what I did is I just didn't test my paint, and this came out just a little bit darker than I wanted. So I'm going to add a little water, just blot it real quick, and that lightens it up. That's a little trick you can do, which is another reason why it's always good to kind of test your paint. Make sure that you have the right color. And I'm just gonna freehand these. They don't need to be perfect. In fact, they should not be, because, again, I always say this when we're painting plants or nature, it's never exactly perfect. This is actually a very good exercise in paint and water control, because as I think you can see this in the camera probably, I'm just dipping into my paint, and you kind of just get the feel for how much is needed for one of these little sprigs. It's actually a really pretty fun project. Easy, it's very simple, beginner friendly. So yeah, there's lavender blooming everywhere here in Idaho right now, and I decided to include the little bee because the lavender here is covered with bees. I don't know if it's like that everywhere. I think it probably is. Bees love lavender. And if you sign up for my Creative Heart Journal that I send out every Friday, I talk about how the bees are necessary for so many things. And so I'm always kind of freaked out when I see a whole ton of bees, like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to walk by there. But they're just busy doing their own thing, and they really, as long as we don't disturb them, they're fine. So I create this journal every week, and it emails on Friday. It's totally free. I do it for creative inspiration for myself, to hold myself accountable to paint, to continue to paint, to continue to teach people to paint. And it's just a fun project that I do. It's a digital flip book. So if you would like that, I have a link in the description. And all you have to do is sign up with your email, and I will start to email it to you every week. Every week has a new project like what we're doing today. This is this next week's. I record ahead of time, put these on YouTube, to start doing that this year. And I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and follow what I'm doing if it interests you. I've just found that watercolor painting is just so enjoyable. It's just something that I really look forward to, and my goal is to paint every day, even for 10 minutes. Sometimes you can just sit down and just make some blobs of paint on the paper, and that's very fun. Sometimes when you do that, you might be surprised how it turns into some work of art. So another thing I'm doing, I am starting a monthly paint along on Zoom online, and you are welcome to join that. It's totally free also, and it's just a way to get to know me, for me to get to know you a little bit more. You just bring your own supplies, use whatever you have on hand, and I have a very, very simple project that we will paint together. The next one is coming up. There's also a link for that, which you can sign up for if you are interested. Love to have you. Love to meet you. So this is very repetitive, and I mean, it's going fairly quickly, but it's so simple. It's just painting the same thing over and over, which I really kind of like. Nothing super involved here. All right, so now some of the ones that I started with here are drying, so I'm going to go back and just add a little bit of darker detail. I always say it's better to start light. And I showed you, you know, I kind of like it sometimes when things don't go exactly as planned, so I could show you how I kind of recover from those things. And I don't know, I used to teach scrapbooking years ago, and people are always so afraid, like, I'm going to mess it up, I'm going to cut this wrong, it's not going to look good. And I would always tell them, there's no mistake that can't be fixed. And a lot of times what we would do is take something that we would call a mistake and turn it into a purposeful thing, because no one is going to know really what you were trying to do. And so if you can just sometimes even emphasize something that was a mistake, it looks like you planned it, which is great. Okay, so this is good. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. I might come back and add a few more details, but I think this is looking pretty okay. Okay, so rinse your brush really well. This is why I have 3 jars. First jar is for the dirtiest water, then the second jar, and the third jar actually stays pretty clean. By the time you put your brush in the third jar, it should be pretty much like no paint on your paintbrush. All right, I've wetted this green now, and I'm still staying with this very small brush. And I want this to be pretty dark. I'm going to start with the stems, but I am going to test it. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to start with the stems, and I'm just going to paint the stems to begin with, and I want them to be very light, a very, very light fine line. And the easiest way to do this is to just rest your wrist on the surface that you're painting on and just move your fingers so the brush goes downward. I like to go top down. People do this type of thing differently. This works for me. And you're just going to barely touch the paper with your brush. And these stems should not be perfectly straight. It's okay if they're different widths. Some might turn fatter, some might be skinnier. And all that is totally fine. Again, this is nature. It's not going to be perfect. But I guess I shouldn't say that. Nature, I think, is perfectly. Nature is perfectly made in its own way. And I think sometimes maybe it's that way so that we can see that things don't have to be perfect to be beautiful. We live in such a fake world so often where things are not real. They appear as real, but they're not real. All right, so I'm going to kind of let these stems dry a little bit, and I'm going to move on down to these little sprigs at the bottom. This one I'm going to go up. Now, while you're working, because I have the camera on, I try to paint without moving my image around too much so that it stays in the right view of the camera. But you don't have to worry about that. So if you feel like you need to rotate it, then just go ahead and do that. That's probably what I would be doing if I wasn't recording, because I like to have different angles. You know, like this one I did the bottom up because it would have been harder for me without rotating the paper. So again, do what feels comfortable for you. And again, when you dip your paintbrush in the water, you have to be careful that there isn't water on the barrel part of the brush, because that can drop onto your paper and put paint where you don't want it. I've had that happen many times. That's why I know. Trial and error. That's how we learn. So I buy lavender scented products whenever I can. I have essential oils. I have lotions and soaps. I have like a hand scrub that I made when I was at the beach last year. And it's like a sugar, I think it's a sugar scrub. And it has real lavender in it. And it smells so good. And I think we also added essential oil to it. Just love the smell of lavender. So naturally, this image just really spoke to my heart. All right, so the last thing with the green here is I want to start with doing the leaves. And I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my palette. And again, test it. And make it a little bit lighter. So I kind of just put one group of leaves where I wanted to start the leaves, and these can just be really pretty random. You can paint these leaves as many or as few as you want. So I'm just going to kind of go with it. Again, you don't have to worry so much about the variation in colors. You can always go back and add some detail, some of these that are dry. And I think it's probably good to just add some leaves to this bottom part. Kind of fill in this bottom part where the pot is. Okay, and then, like always, I kind of, when I'm finished with a certain part of a project, I kind of take a step back, stop painting for a minute, and just see, is there anything I want to add to? Is there anywhere that needs maybe a few more leaves? I think this looks pretty good filled in, pretty much filled in. So I think I will go back and just take a little bit darker paint and add some detail here and there. Not a lot. Okay, I think I like this. I think I'm going to leave it as that for the leaves. So at this point, I'm going to just kind of take a look around, rinse my brush, and see if I wanted to add any more color And I think I am going to add a little more of this pink color to the hearts because they're very light. And I kind of want them to stand out a little more. Now you might be wondering too about the bee has black, and I obviously don't have any black paint here. So I use the black markers to add detail. And I've just found that with very small areas especially, it's just easier to use the pen. And so I'm also going to use the black pen to kind of create the look of dirt here by probably adding little tiny dots. So the other thing I'm going to do is add just a bit more of this terracotta to the sides of this pot. And I'm just going to add a little bit of paint and then just plain water on my brush. Kind of blend it to the sides here. And a little bit more underneath the rim and the sides. Now, one of the things, I'm just going to mention this because as a beginner with watercolor painting, what I used to do is I would scrub like this, trying to blend. And with acrylics, you really kind of, I think, do that more. I'm not really sure because I'm not like an expert in that either. But with watercolor, the thing that's better to do is add your paint and then let the water do the work. Add some water, just plain, like rinse your brush and add some plain water and see how it's starting to blend. And so I've just found that that's a technique that I had to kind of learn, because if you start scrubbing it, not only does it not really blend very well, but it kind of takes away from the watercolor effect that you're trying to get. All right, so this looks pretty much finished as far as the paint. Now I'm going to go back in with the black marker and add the details. All right, so I'm going to use this 0.5 micron pen. And I'm going to start with the dirt, like I was saying. I'm going to just start to add some dots in here and see how that looks. You could always use a darker paint too, but one of my goals is to just keep things really simple by having 5 colors. And so I don't really include black and white as colors, so to speak. I mean, they are, but I don't call them colors as for the purpose of the work that I create, because they're kind of like freebie colors. Like everything should have black and white in it. It's kind of another design principle. They're kind of like grounding colors. So I'm going to fill this in quite well because I want it to be kind of dark. And when I forgot to mention, when you do this kind of thing, you definitely want to make sure that your paint is really super dry. I know this bee is very dry because I painted this right at the beginning. So now I'm just going to outline the bee. A very light touch. You want to use very fine tip pens for this. Very light touch. And I'm just going to color in the stripes again with the black. And you could use paint. And I'm going to give him some little antennas. And an eye. And a couple of little legs. And then I think it's kind of whimsical and cute to have the little like trail that he's flying to show some motion. All right, and then I am going to outline the hearts. And I think now what I'm going to do is switch to even my smaller pen, which is a 005. And this one, I'm going to fill in a little more of this detail work. All right, and then these little dots, I am going to outline them. And I think I will outline the pot also. And I don't think I'm going to bother outlining the flowers because I think they kind of do a good job of standing on their own the way they are. This, I kind of, when I get to this point, it's called watercolor sketching. And it's just making it look almost like you had drawn this and then painted it. Or did a pen and ink drawing. And so I kind of just play it by ear. It doesn't have to be outlined perfectly. It really shouldn't be. It's good to have some lighter, some darker areas, make it really look hand done. And that brings the whimsical nature to the painting. All right, and so it's always good also to have like heavier things towards the bottom. So I'm going to add just a little bit of detail to these also, these sprigs, make them just look a little bit different. So it kind of grounds your work. So the last thing I'm going to do, I am going to go back to my palette because I forgot to add the shadow. I'm going to take this very, very light, water it way down, test it, and I think I'm just going to add a slight bit of purple to this. And why? Because I want I want it to look a little bit more like a shadow. And even lighter than that. Okay. And this I'm going to put around the base of this pot. And that sort of just grounds it, even though it's so light, it's so subtle, but it sort of just grounds your image so that it's not looking like it's floating in midair. And then it's pretty warm in my room today, so things are drying pretty quickly. So I could add a little more dark. Okay. Okay, this has been such a fun project. I really like the way this has turned out. I always take my very fine tip pen, 005. And I always like to sign my work, so I will sign it in the right-hand corner here. I just use a mark of my initials and the year to show that it was handmade by me, but also I can keep track of my progress and my work. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I loved this project today. It was a good project for me to do while I am kind of recovering from this cold. And as I'm speaking, I forgot I was going to use this Sharpie pen for these dots. And I'm just going to add just ever so slightly. And truthfully, I don't think that you probably even really need that, but something that I wanted to add. All right, so it's done. And I wanted to show you one other thing. Now, I made this smaller today on purpose. I actually had blown it up and made it a little bigger. It probably would have been easier to paint. But I wanted this to fit in a frame, and because I think it's so cute, it would be fun to frame it. Maybe put this frame on or put this frame on. Now, I got these from Amazon, and what's so great is I have this journal. I can either leave it in here and continue to paint on and look back and see my progress, or I can use the scored line to tear it out, cut it out. And these on Amazon, it came with like a pack of 50, I think, all different color frames. Then they have a cardboard backing and plastic. So I could trace this image, or not image, but trace using this cardboard, cut it out, put the image on here, frame it, put it in this plastic, seal it, and I could even write a nice note on the back and give this as a gift to someone. I love to do this. It really makes someone's day when they get something that's handmade like this. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I would love to see your progress. Join my Facebook group. Please post in there your images, the thing, or photographs of what you're painting. I would love to see that. And I would just love to hear from you and get to know you. So yeah, check the description. If it says more, click more, and it will open up the whole description, and there's all kinds of information in there. So have a great rest of your day. Keep painting. Make a goal for your painting a couple times a week, every day if you can, and you will see such rapid progress. Okay, have a great rest of your day.